Welcome back to Les Schwab Tire Center's Outdoor GPS, presented by Fisherman's Marine and Outdoor.
Welcome back, everybody. I got to get to it. We're running out of time already. Brine and Bright comes obviously in the bottles, right? It's already ready to go. But you have a powdered version, and I know, at least myself, I've got friends that only use this. They don't use the, maybe it's a mental thing, but I actually sent you a text this past week because I was curious. I cracked open a brand new one, and if we can get a shot of this, Danielle, when I cracked it open, it was brown.
Yep.
I mean, brown. And I'm like, oh, man. You know, it was a year or two old, I guess. I'm like, geez, is it rotted already? So I sent Steve a text, and he's like, no. Why did you say no?
One of the chemicals naturally turns brown if it gets moisture to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's more intense. I mean, the smell, if you smell that, it just has a potent, fishy smell.
Okay.
Almost molasses, too.
And we don't know.
Right. I think I noticed that, too, yeah.
But even if our shop takes a 15-minute break with this in the hopper, it will start turning brown. But we have some guides that buy it, crack the lids, put it in their garage, and wait for it to turn brown. But it just enhances the odor. But even though when you go to put it in the tray, the water will have a brown tint to it. But still, if you're adding dye to it, don't go by the color look of the water. Stick a paper towel in there, pull it out. It'll still be chartreuse blue, even with it being a brownish water.
Okay,
and
so
here again, it's just one of the ingredients naturally goes dark.
So with the Brine and Bright in the container, the powdered version, again, I know folks that only use that. They use half of this for 1 quart.
Yeah.
They're doing 2 quarts with 1 container. Is that the right amount?
Correct. Yeah. 1 container with 2 quarts of water.
Okay, so like we were talking about, I like to use jars. Everybody's different on what they like to do there. When I use it, half of it goes into a jar, distilled water, and pretty much call it good. If it's brown, it's good, if not better than it was. And if you want to do that, you can crack the seal.
Just crack a little bit.
And get a little bit of air into it. Okay, so now let's talk eggs. I've kind of been leading up to this, right?
Yeah.
Jason's been fishing for a little while. He's caught a couple of salmon. Everybody thinks he's really good at it. That's my little poke. Craziest bite in the world up in Oregon City. You know that. You've been in the middle of it. You've been in the middle of it and been successful. You've been in the middle of it and failed, like all of us have. Anything that, so the majority of us are only going to have 1, 2, 3, maybe different flavors of eggs. And a lot of days, all 3 of your eggs and somebody else's that you might steal from ain't going to work. But is there something that we can do to make them, maybe make them work? Is there some way that we can just enhance it?
There's always things you can do to help. You can add metabisulfites to them. You can add sodium sulfite to it. You can add, I've seen guys out there spraying starter fluid, for God's sakes. There's a ton of things you can do.
Okay, hand me one of those different, so you got different versions, right? You got the sodium sulfite. I'm not going to mention the one that you already mentioned because there's people throwing stuff at the TV.
Right.
But you got Monster Bite, you got Slamola powder.
Tuna powder.
When do you add this to those eggs? Like you lay them out, you cut up some baits or whatever, or maybe you leave them in skeins before you cut them, whatever it is that you do. Is there a time frame that you want?
Same way you do with everything else with your herring. If one guy's using this scent, another guy's using this scent, same thing. Add a little bit of sodium metabisulfite to 1 rod. Add a little bit of.
He just did it again.
It's just mix it up until you find what's consistent.
Okay, so can we put it right on the eggs right when we're fishing?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but if you can, try to give them a little bit of time to kind of.
I do it in the morning before I leave the house. I'll split up a pint of eggs 3 different ways and load them. And that way gives the powders more time to absorb into the eggs.
Okay, so you might be able to take a lackluster egg, at least for what those fish want in particular.
Right.
Change it up a little bit, give them something that might just stimulate them to go ahead and eat that as opposed to letting it go by them, which is super frustrating. So really, rely on some of these products from I mean, we all do, right? Yeah. But don't be scared to actually use it. I've got friends that literally have brand new bottles of this stuff and they've never been cracked. Right. You're not going to catch fish with this stuff if you don't use it. And then don't forget, like the krill or the tuna powders. Those are all things that you can add to your eggs as well to try to change things up. Also, if you're going to be using sand shrimp or even prawn bits, whatever, you can inject those with oils that you're putting on with your egg baits, right? So there's a number of things that you can do to change things up, although I'll admit, when you're just getting whipped, go drop the anchor, run some prawns and spinners or whatever and just catch them instead of fighting the battle out there. I mean, really, it can get that frustrating.
Yeah, the more cures you can have, the better. The more different egg cures, because every day is different.
Right, and it is. It's just one of those things. How many different flavors do you have when you go out there?
I usually try at least 3 or 4.
3 or 4. And which, I mean, if you have the ability to do so, make sure you do that. Okay, so we have one question, and just make sure that I got this right, Ryan. It was about storage of herring once it's cured. Do you put it in the refrigerator or not? Was that the question? I'm assuming that's what, anyway, I can't hear him. But the question was how to store it best after it's been cured.
So if you're going to fish the next day or two, you can leave it in the brine in the refrigerator. If it's going to be the following weekend, remove it from the brine, put it in a Ziploc freezer bag, roll it up, get as much air out as you can, throw it in the freezer, and refrigerate your brine. Once bait's been in it, you got to keep it refrigerated.
Okay.
The night before you're going to fish, pull it out of the freezer. It's going to look really ugly. Don't worry about it. Put it back in the brine, and the next morning it'll fish beautiful.
Okay, so there is a way to maintain or save a little bit of money, really.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, because herring is not cheap anymore.
No.
So a way that you can kind of continue to keep that going.
Now,
right?
I see guys throwing bait away at the boat ramp, dumping out their trays.
Yeah.
Just drives me crazy.
Yeah.
If it was kept cold throughout the day, you can, even if it was trade bait, right, with no brine, if it's been kept cold, at the end of the day, you can then brine it. Use it the following day, the following week, whenever.
Take their advice. There's ways that you can save on baits and be more productive at the same time. Don't go anywhere, though. We're going to cut to a break. We'll be right back.
Outdoor GPS is brought to you by Yakima Bait, steeped in tradition, innovation, and fishing success. And by Procure Bait Sense, ruthlessly effective.